Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. The stock market is closed today, but futures are open, and they're down quite a lot at the time of recording this video. Here in this video, I will share with you all of your breaking news, what is happening over this Thursday, what markets are going to react to coming tomorrow. Also, we will cover your Tesla stock news. Specifically, is the Robotaxi launch going to be delayed? That's a big question that a lot of you have following some news where it possibly could be. I'll give you my insights and my expectations here in this video. First and foremost, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already, and let's get started. So let's start with futures and what's going on in the broader market. You could see right now S&P futures are down 0.81%, almost 1%. NASDAQ futures are down about 1%, and Dow futures are down 0.81%. Oil is up 2.17%. So a little bit of a reaction here in energy markets. That suggests to me this is about the Israel-Iran conflict. The main headline here on CNBC is, quote, "A terrible spiral of escalation. World braces for intensifying Iran-Israel conflict." It says all eyes are on the White House as U.S. President Donald Trump weighs carrying out military strikes on Iran. Leaders from the UK, Russia, China, Germany, and beyond have weighed in on the growing conflict, which is showing no signs of de-escalating. Chances of diplomacy are looking increasingly bleak as Iran and Israel continue to trade increasingly deadly blows. The Kremlin warned Thursday that U.S. intervention in Iran would set off a, quote, terrible spiral of escalation, while Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova told Reuters that the world is, quote, millimeters away from a nuclear catastrophe. The president on Wednesday said, quote, "I may do it, I may not. I mean, nobody knows what I'm going to do. I can tell you this, that Iran's got a lot of trouble and they want to negotiate," he told Reuters on the White House lawn on Wednesday. He added, quote, "The next week is going to be big." The president said later from the Oval Office that he likes to make the final decision 1 second before it's due because things change, especially with war. Now, let's be honest, when it comes to geopolitical conflicts, they don't tend to be long-lasting negative catalysts for markets because Wall Street doesn't care who is killing who is bombing who. Wall Street only cares about financial and economic impacts. Now, with the Middle East situation, there is a clear impact potentially on energy. And I am optimistic that this will eventually end in diplomacy, in Iran coming to the White House. And let me tell you, when it is announced, if it is announced that Iran is coming to the White House, Wall Street is going to assume this conflict is over with, and stocks will rally aggressively. Now, despite that, though, we have another issue, and that is an incompetent Fed. The Fed is compromised. Let's be honest. Good news is it is already June, it's almost July, and we get a new Fed chair in the first 3 months of 2026. So we don't have to wait too long for the Fed to get uncompromised. Here's the deal. I was a Powell supporter for a long time, but yesterday changed that, okay? The Fed is compromised or incompetent or both, because Powell said they're expecting a meaningful amount of inflation this year. But that's like hanging your whole strategy on expectations, okay? Which we haven't seen inflation at all in the first 2 months of tariffs being enforced. In fact, tariffs may actually be a deflationary force, okay? There is no evidence that we are going to see inflation at all via tariffs. Now, that's one reason why I think yesterday, markets actually showed how strong they are, because despite the incompetent Fed, which I think a lot of people are starting to think the Fed's kind of incompetent at this point, stocks still did okay. You were still pretty much break even on the day, which I think, again, is a sign of real strength. Now, last night and today, Donald Trump had more criticisms for the Fed. Late last night, he called Powell a real dummy, quote unquote, saying that we should be 2.5 points lower and that would save billions on all of Biden's short-term debt. Now, Trump says that he would do a much better job than these people if he ran the Fed. You know, kind of hinting towards he would like to just be the Fed at this point. And Trump has said that he intends to announce his next pick for chair of the Federal Reserve, quote, very soon. So again, the point I'm making here, despite the Fed being incompetent, despite this conflict in the Middle East, which hopefully comes to an end pretty soon, the markets have still done pretty well. And yeah, that's a sign of market strength. Now, before we go ahead and get into all of your headlines today, all of the breaking news you need to know, let's go over some breaking news for Tesla. And one thing in particular that is starting to get more traction heading into tomorrow. And that is the potential of a delay in the launch of Robotaxi. Here's the news. A group of Texas lawmakers sent a letter to Tesla urging the company to delay its robotaxi operations in Austin until September 1st, when a revised autonomous vehicle operations framework goes into effect. This does not mean Tesla has to halt its June 22nd robotaxi service launch. The letter said if Tesla still proceeds with its plans to launch this month, they request the company responds to the letter with detailed information demonstrating that Tesla will be compliant with the new law upon the launch of driverless operations in Austin. Under the new framework, commercial autonomous vehicle operators transporting passengers or property must achieve prior authorization from the Department of Motor Vehicles before operating on public streets without a human driver, the letter reads. Quote, in order to get that authorization, an operator must demonstrate each vehicle is capable of operating in compliance with state traffic laws, put a check there, equipped with a recording device, put a check there, compliant with federal law including federal motor vehicle safety standards, put a check there, capable of achieving a minimal risk condition if the automated driving system is rendered inoperable. That's interesting. I believe, if I'm understanding this correctly, it would be some kind of intervention from a third party, like Waymo can do. If the vehicle, for whatever reason, just stops working, somebody can take over and essentially drive the vehicle to a safe spot or complete the robotaxi trip, you know, via looking at a screen somewhere. So I believe that is a check. We check the box there, but I'm not 100% sure. I believe so. Like 95% sure, but again, impossible to be 100% on that. And then registered, titled, and insured under Texas law. So from what I'm seeing, Tesla is already compliant here. But again, there's a chance that it does get delayed, but probably not. I think the launch is going to happen this week on June 22nd. Now, this robotaxi launch is incredibly important for Tesla. Obviously, if it were to be delayed or something, that would be a big negative for the stock. The stock would sell off quite a bit. There's no indications that's going to happen. We're going to look at the option activity in just a moment that we had yesterday. Some of the final numbers came in, and it was huge. Like, it looks like someone out there is preparing for a large rally in Tesla, okay? But between now and June 22nd, it wouldn't surprise me if Wall Street gets a little bit more nervous about the robotaxi launch on June 22nd. I've already seen a couple articles suggesting that the robotaxi launch is going to be delayed, and we haven't gotten any clarity or news from Tesla specifically on this matter. Don't be surprised if that's a narrative that starts to get pushed tomorrow. But really, the launch of the robotaxi is massively important. It is the first instance where Tesla's AI operations start to get categorized. They start to get put in the spotlight. What I mean by categorized is we've had FSD for a long time, but it doesn't get broke down in its own category. We don't know what the FSD growth rate is. We don't know what FSD revenue is or subscription revenue. Tesla doesn't break that down for us. But we will have now something in Robotaxi to be able to look at independently from Tesla's business and say, hey, like this is growing a lot. Or, you know, just an AI category to really look at. Now, beyond that, from just a numbers perspective, Wall Street has to start pricing in now and modeling what a scaling of Robotaxi could look like. Now, whether it's Bank of America that's kind of bearish on Tesla to begin with, expecting 6,000 Robotaxis out on the road next year, or whether it's Bloomberg that tends to be a little bit more bullish on Tesla that's expecting 35,000 Robotaxis out on the road next year. Either number sounds good to me. Okay? What that would look like for modeling from an analyst perspective, I think is big. So, it's like saying a company is going to do XYZ for years and it doesn't happen. Okay, sure, you give them a little bit of the benefit of the doubt, but you can't really price in what that means for the company long term until it happens. It would kind of be like the Fed, like, being incompetent. That would be kind of incompetent from an analyst perspective if they were pricing in Robotaxi before it actually happened. Okay, well, now it's happening, and now even the bears have to start pricing in what this could mean for Tesla's business longer term. What this could mean in 2030. Forget next year. What's it going to mean in 2027 if you have 100,000 Robotaxis out on the road? Or what's it look like in 2028 when you have, 500,000 Robotaxis out on the road, or some crazy number across all of America? That's where you could start to justify a lot higher prices in Tesla stock. And you can start to get a lot more optimistic on Tesla's future, even if you're a bear on Tesla, right? I honestly don't care what the projections are. Like by 2028, if there's 500,000 Robotaxis out on the road, that's great. If there's 100,000 Robotaxis out on the road, that's great. Okay? Because that is modeling that Wall Street will have to do, and we will start to price in some of that future growth. I think starting, this week, maybe tomorrow, maybe we've already started to do that with the 2% rise in Tesla stock on Wednesday, but definitely next week we will, Wall Street will have to start revising targets and putting in new estimates based on Robotaxi. And that's not to mention Optimus, which if that's going, as planned, we should have some sales of Optimus in warehouse-like settings or repetitive tasks next year. And you can see here one of the top headlines on Ortex right now is Texas lawmakers urge Tesla to delay Robotaxi launch ahead of new AV regulations. So don't be surprised if that gives Tesla a little bit of a ding coming tomorrow. But here's the deal. On Wednesday, we had some very positive option activity. Someone out there is positioning for a large rally in Tesla. You had 168 different trades from hedge funds and institutions, not including retail investors, totaling $2.44 billion with a positive order value of 83%. Wow. Those are some super bullish numbers. I mean, that's a lot. I can't recall the last day you had almost $2.5 billion worth of option activity in a single day. Like, that is impressive. You've also seen about 10.5 million shorts cover on short positions within the last 2 weeks or so as we are gearing up for the launch of Robotaxi. So it definitely seems like Wall Street is getting a little bit more bullish on Tesla, and I think a larger rally is to come. Now, short interest of free float has fallen from 3.04% to 2.74%. You may not think that is impactful, but again, that's about 10.5 million shares, which is, almost $4 billion worth of short positions in Tesla. You have $24.73 billion sold short in Tesla currently, with 76.8 million shares that are currently sold short. So if this thing starts to move to the upside and we start to get a larger rally, there is quite a bit of fuel or dry powder for a bit of a squeeze in Tesla stock, especially if you do get this Middle East conflict over with sooner rather than later. Yeah, it could get pretty good for Tesla over the next couple of weeks. Now, also in the news, Tesla service invoices in Canada can now be financed through Affirm. Based on approval and credit profiles, payment plans can include 0% APR offers or longer-term rates up to 36% APR. It has confirmed that the brand has reversed its 2021 decision to phase out the production of cars with combustion engines by 2033. In fact, the German car maker no longer makes any promises at all, which again just puts Tesla further ahead of the competition when it comes to EVs. If people aren't even trying to compete anymore, well, that's less competition for Tesla. And ex-CEO Linda Yaccarino says X will offer investment and trading in the super app push. X might also introduce credit or debit cards, potentially launching this year. The company wants users to handle their full financial life on the platform, transfers, investments, and payments, according to the Financial Times. Let me know down below in the comment section if you plan to be a user of the X super app. Now, Elon Musk hints that Tesla shareholders will get very rich. This is a post that says, quote, "Mom, how did we get so rich?" Quote, "Your father didn't sell his entire Tesla position a week before the launch of Robotaxi." Elon comments and says, "Forked versus." Now, Tesla is hiring engineers for new products. Affordable models coming soon. You can see some new job positions here. In Fremont, a launch engineer, new product introduction, and general assembly. Same thing here, Sparks, Nevada, Buffalo, New York, Brookshire, Texas, Fremont, Nevada, and New York, which all have new product in the title. Now, in broader news today, the war will continue for 2 to 3 weeks, and if America joins, it could take days. Sources to the Broadcasting Authority cited by Al Arabiya News. The U.S. and British foreign ministers will discuss finding a way out and presenting a final offer to Iran in Washington on Thursday. CBS News citing an official. And quote, "The impending collapse of the Iranian regime is far from the truth," according to NBC quoting an Israeli intelligence official. And Israeli TV broadcast images of the arrival of U.S. military aid. "We expect a U.S. decision on joining the war within 24 to 48 hours, according to an official cited by the Times of Israel." So at some point over this weekend. Israel's Prime Minister Netanyahu says change or fall of Iranian regime is not a goal, but could be a result. Which again, I think this is part of Trump's strategy. Like, threatening US involvement is such a, bad thing for Iran. It's such a lose-lose proposition for Iran that just threatening this potentially brings them to the negotiations table and gets a real deal done. It seems like ever since Trump threatened the strikes in Iran, Iran has really opened up or cozied up to the idea of signing a nuclear deal, even saying that they don't ever want to have a nuclear weapon. And apparently Trump was briefed on both the risks and the benefits of bombing Fordow, Iran's most heavily secured nuclear facility, and his mindset is that disabling it is necessary because of the risk of weapons being produced in a relatively short period of time. That is where we believe, Western officials believe, that the highest grade enriched uranium is held, and that without destroying that facility, Iran could still develop a nuclear weapon. U.S. envoy Witkoff and Iran's counterpart spoke several times in the past week. 3 diplomats are cited. New York Times, citing U.S. military officials, reported that the U.S. Navy is considering distributing its ships in the Gulf to reduce their vulnerability. Iran's foreign minister said Tehran would not return to negotiations unless Israel stopped the attacks. U.S. and Iran are holding secret talks amid ongoing Israeli strikes. Envoy Witkoff and Foreign Minister Araghchi held direct calls as Iran signals nuclear flexibility if attacks stop. Tehran rejects talks under fire with EU ministers to meet Ashki Friday in Geneva. And Trump has signed an executive order extending the deadline for the TikTok closing for 90 days. Iran's Supreme National Security Council says Iran will use a different strategy if a third party joins Israel in the war. And according to a White House official, Trump will receive an intelligence briefing today in the Situation Room. And Netanyahu says the U.S. is providing significant assistance in our conflict with Iran. Iranian media says this night will not be like the previous ones. On Truth Social, Trump says the Wall Street Journal has no idea what my thoughts are concerning Iran. And in the news today, China is to cooperate with the U.S. in drug control and illegal immigrants. Like 90% of the world's fentanyl comes from a small region in China. So getting fentanyl under control paves the way for substantially lower tariffs on China, like only a 10% tariff on China if the fentanyl tariff is removed. And maybe, you know, Trump could even lower the tariff even more if there was serious progress made on fentanyl. At least that's what I would do. If you're serious and really stop the fentanyl problem, I would probably take it all the way down to 10%, reduce the old tariffs put on China as well. I'm surprised that futures are not reacting more positively to this. In fact, futures have only gotten worse in the time of recording this video. S&P futures are now down 0.93%, NASDAQ futures down 1.1%, and Dow futures down 0.93% as well. Oil is up 2.63%. So people are definitely nervous about the whole Iran conflict prospect. And I think a lot of it has to do with tomorrow is Friday. And if we're going to get an attack on Iran, and it's going to happen this weekend, a lot of people are not going to want to hold their positions over the weekend. Okay, so if Friday's tomorrow's a red day, I'm not super shocked by that because, again, whenever you have a big catalyst, potentially over a weekend, a lot of people don't want to hold their positions and not be able to, change things over the weekend. Okay. And then wake up to a really big red market on Monday. A lot of Wall Street, their risk management profiles don't allow them to hold over a weekend when there is incredible amounts of volatility. And European officials increasingly resigned to 10% baseline tariff rates on reciprocal tariffs in any US-EU trade deal. And probably one of the headlines that continues to weaken markets here this morning, Iran's Parliamentary National Security Committee board member says Iran has many options to respond to aggression, including closing the Strait of Hormuz. So, again, that makes sense why energy is responding so negatively, but that's that's the end of Iran as you know it. Okay, that would immediately get the U.S. involved, probably a boots on the ground kind of situation. At the very least, some intense bombing would take place. Now, Alva, an AI co-pilot here, says if Iran actually shut down the Strait of Hormuz, it would trigger immediate energy shocks. Oil could rip to $130 plus a barrel, dragging global inflation and risk assets with it. Markets are already uneasy, Bitcoin dumping on airstrike headlines, then clawback losses as traders hedge for chaos. So, again, that's the issue with this conflict. So hopefully we do get some kind of meeting set up between the US and Iran, and Wall Street can start to lower the odds of an energy shock, because that's what it's about at this point. So ladies and gentlemen, let me know your thoughts on all of this down below in the comment section. If there is some kind of big news shared, I will be sharing that with you later on tonight, because we know how Trump operates. We know Trump likes to move markets, and we could get a positive headline tonight about trade negotiations, but we will have to see. Let me know your thoughts again on all of this down below in the comment section. If you guys want to come trade with us live in real time, check out that link down below in the description of this video. Plan to do quite a bit of trading tomorrow because of the volatility that we could see over this weekend, for good for better or for worse. But what we're really focused on over there is finding those smaller cap companies that are those hidden gems, those stocks that are overlooked, underappreciated, that are doing big things that Wall Street doesn't know about yet. I call it information disparity, where like maybe there's news that comes out or a company's doing something, but Wall Street generally doesn't know about it. They're not super well-known companies, and eventually Wall Street's going to catch on to those stocks. I want to be there before Wall Street catches on. That's where the money is made, okay? Nebius, Applied Digital, Novartis Semiconductors, even HIMS at like $22, right? These are some of the buys we've had in the last like 6 months or so, that I think there's a lot of opportunity in these names. And I'm sharing my positions. I'm showing you guys the trades that I'm making, and I'm going pretty large in some of these, because when I see an opportunity, I like to seize it. Okay, I don't like to play things small. When I do the due diligence, when I put in the work and realize the opportunity. Okay, 9 times out of 10, I'm mad at myself because I played something way too small or sold out too early of something I knew was going to be a winner or a quote unquote hidden gem, underappreciated stock. So check that out if you guys have not done so already. Have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one.